How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to Before I Forget. This is my video channel that I've created, which was also inspired by my Instagram channel, 1985 Road Dog. I started that channel just to document my photographs of being a fan of music and somebody that grew up in music and ended up working in the music business. And I started that Instagram channel, and it inspired this video channel, the stories behind the photographs kind of thing. So if you've been following me, you know I've been telling some Motley Crue stories, and I've been hearing from people that they want more Motley Crue stories. So here we go, more Motley Crue. When we last left Motley Crue, this was January of 1984. They had just played Madison Square Garden, opening for Ozzy on the Bark at the Moon tour. Motley was on the Shout at the Devil tour. That was January '84. We had been through 4 shows of Motley Crue mayhem, partying with the guys and having a great time and living it up 80s style. So flash forward now, it's June of '84. And Motley Crue are coming back to New York. They're playing theaters, or at least they did in New York. They played a theater called the Beacon Theater. The Beacon probably holds about 2,500, something like that, 2,800 in there. And Motley Crue played there 2 nights in June. I think it was June 2nd and 3rd, or 3rd or 4th, or something like that. Beginning of June, Motley Crue does 2 nights at the Beacon Theater, and the opening band is Ratt. So that's a pretty big deal, because at the time, none of us had really seen Ratt up until this point live. The Ratt hadn't been through the New York area. We hadn't seen Ratt. We didn't know. I mean, we were excited because we loved the Ratt album, Out of the Cellar. So 2 nights, Motley Crue at the Beacon Theater, Shout at the Devil tour, with Ratt on the Out of the Cellar tour opening. Now, the night before those 2 nights, Ratt played their own show at a club in Brooklyn called Lamour, which is a famous rock and metal club, Lamour Brooklyn. There were actually 2 Lamours. There was a Lamour East in Queens, which was, also a huge, big, tremendous club. Not as famous as the Brooklyn Club. So Ratt was going to do their own show at the Lamour nightclub. And then the next night they would play with Motley. And then the next night they would open for Motley. So it was 3 or 4 nights of just insanity for all of us. I mean, super hyped up. And because the Beacon was on the smaller side, there was a demand for tickets. I think it was 2,500 people at the Beacon Theater. So they sold out right away. It's 5,000 people. Not really a lot for Motley Crue at this point, as they're, starting to ascend the charts. I think Too Young to Fall in Love had come out by this point as a single. So it was a big deal. And, I was at the time still working as a DJ. I was still a nightclub DJ at a club called Speaks out in Long Island that held 2,500 people. That was packed 5 nights a week, slam packed every night. They were open, and they were open 5 nights. So I did that at night, and I was working for a record distributor in the daytime called Important Record Distributors that imported and sold European music and European import albums into America and put them in American stores. I was working day and night, and then Motley came back around, and we're all in party mode at this point. I went to the show. Let's see. Let me go backwards. So I went to the Ratt show at Lamour Brooklyn with my friend Stacy, who figures into the rock and roll mayhem in certain spots in my life. But anyway, so she drove to Brooklyn, to Lamour, and Lamour Brooklyn was in like an industrial area of Brooklyn. Just industrial warehouses, auto body shops, just grungy looking. The nightclub in Saturday Night Fever, which was called 2001 Odyssey, was also in that same part of Brooklyn. So if you watch that movie, you'll kind of get the idea. Grungy, nowhere to park. They'll tow your car in a second if you park wrong. So we get to the show, the Ratt show, and it's, nowhere to park. It's just crazy. I mean, Lamour Brooklyn, I think, held about 2,000 people, and it was sold out. So we fight our way to get a spot. We get to the front door, and I'm on the guest list. Somebody, my friends at Atlantic Records, put me on the guest list for the show. So the guy's looking at the guest list, and I'm giving him my name, and you know, he's got Budweiser cartons ripped off of a box with names written on it. Just completely unorganized and insane. But, you know, this is Lamour Brooklyn, 1984. So he finds my name, I get into the show, and it's packed. And it's June, and it's hot as hell. It's a sweat box in there. Humidity, the walls are dripping sweat, packed for this show. So I get in, and you can't really go anywhere. And as soon as I get in the door, I run into a friend of mine from high school. And he says, hey, man, Nikki and Tommy from Motley Crue are all the way in the back in the VIP. I was like, oh, cool. Excited to see him. I was with Stacy, my friend. We fight our way through the crowd at Lamour to go all the way to the back of the club. You know, it took forever to get back there. You just people sandwiched together. Just anyway, I get to the back, and there's a VIP area, which is like an elevated platform. I don't know, maybe it's, you know, 3 feet high with like a metal railing around it, like a little fence kind of thing, like a little VIP area. And, you know, you can't get in the VIP. There's security everywhere. It's packed. Everybody's screaming and yelling. The music's blasting from the DJ that was playing there. Anyway, I see Tommy, and I'm like, yo, T-Bone. And he goes, dude. And he just grabs me and, like, pulls me up and lifts me over the railing and everything into the VIP. Starts doing a Motley Crue handshake with me. Dude, you know, the whole nine. I ask him, can I get my friend, you know, Stacy to come up? He's like, sure, dude. And he got her, pulled her up. She came in there. And it was so hot. And I remember her telling me later, she's like, I couldn't believe how hot it was and how Nikki Sixx was dressed head to toe in like black leather. He had on a long black leather trench coat and you know, I mean, he was just, and everyone is sweating, and she's just like, you know, she thought they looked like monsters because they look like monsters. They're so tall, and you know, and they look like monsters back then. Motley Crue. Tommy again, the goofy fun guy. But anyway, so we pull my friend up. She gets in there. We're hanging with Tommy, and then I look over to the right, and down the wall of the VIP, down the wall about, I don't know, 10 feet away, Nikki Sixx is leaning against the wall with a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand, and there's a girl sitting on a chair giving him a blowjob right there, like in front of everybody. And I was like, oh shit. My friend Stacy was like, can you believe this stuff? I'm like, hey, rock and roll, you know. And he didn't. Nikki was swigging from the bottle of Jack, and I'm trying not to look over there, but everybody's looking. Tommy's hanging out. He gets us a beer. We're doing the Motley handshake, you know. Of course, you know, we got some powder. We're gonna bump up. So Nikki finishes, and he comes over to where we are, and he's like, dude, what's up, dude? And he just goes, drink, and he shoves the bottle of Jack Daniels in my chest, like, drink this. And I'm like, you know, and he had just been swigging on it over in the corner. It's 100 degrees, everything's humid, the bottle's all gross and wet. I just turn up the bottle, and Nikki and Tommy are both with me right there, and we're hanging out, and it's packed in there, and it's so hot. And a photographer comes over. That was, I don't know who he was, but he was actually, I have his name, and I found the picture that I'm about to describe to you, and I'm going to post it soon. But this pro photographer with a nice camera took a photograph of me and Tommy and Nikki. And as soon as he is done taking the picture, Nikki gives me the bottle again, and he goes, drink it. So I start swigging, and he leans over and bites my arm. Bites the hell out of me, like broke the skin, it was bleeding, you know, and I'm like, I'm screaming like, what the hell, dude? And Tommy's like, it's okay, man, it's okay. He only bites you if he likes you. I'm like, well, that's good to know. So, you know, my arm's bleeding, and he's like, just drink more, and I'm drinking. It was just insanity. It was really nutty. And now they're showing us their new tattoos. They had just gotten the bat. There's like a bat on each guy, got a bat on his arm, and it said Motley Crue. So Nikki and Tommy were showing us their tattoos. We just got these. The whole band got them, you know, and we're looking at him. Meanwhile, my arm's bleeding. You know, he just keeps giving me the jack. We're whiffing up. So then Bruno Ravel shows up. He didn't come with us, but Bruno was there, and I see Bruno, and I get him in the VIP. And then Ratt comes on, and they were great. They were really, really good. I mean, to see Ratt in that club, 2,000 people on the Out of the Cellar tour, they were just slamming. At some point, we lost touch with track of Nikki and Tommy. They left or whatever, and we watched the show. Then after the show, we go back to the backstage, and my friends from Atlantic Records were there. They gave us the passes, and we met the Ratt guys. And we quickly found out that the only guys really that like to hang out and party and get nuts and do powder was Bobby Blotzer and Robbin Crosby. Blotzer was nuts. Blotzer was like jacked up all the time and, you know, wild and crazy. And Robbin Crosby was very chill. He was very... He didn't have to get loud. You knew he partied and he could handle himself, and you just knew he didn't have to be loud and crazy. Blotzer was nuts. So anyway, you know, now it's like, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning, because, you know, the clubs in New York close at 4 a.m. We got out of there. I don't know what happened. How I got home, I don't remember a lot after meeting the Ratt guys. So the next night. Actually, the next day, Ratt did an in-store record appearance where they showed up at a record store and signed autographs, and people bought their album and they autographed the album. They did that at Slip Disc Records in the afternoon in Valley Stream, Long Island. And then that night, Ratt and Motley, night one at the Beacon. So I can't remember how, but I always had Tommy's info and got his phone number at the hotel and whatever. And he was like, yeah, dude, after the show, just look for Clyde, his drum roadie, Clyde the Spide. He's like, look for Clyde, and Clyde will get you passes and hook you up. So, you know, spoke to Tommy that afternoon. Meanwhile, I had woken up and my arm was all swollen and pussy and it looked infected. So I had to go to the doctor and, you know, went to the emergency room, and they gave me a tetanus shot and a rabies shot and bandaged it up. Then I went back to the Motley Crue show. So the Beacon is all theater seats, and it's kind of like a sloped floor. So it was just mayhem in the Beacon. The energy was insane. It was I wouldn't say it was sweltering, but it was hot. Everybody's crammed in there, and the Beacon sold alcohol, not just beer, but like liquor. So you could go get like a rum and coke. So everybody in that place was drunk and high. Everybody. Motley does an insane show. Ratt did an insane show. Ratt was hard to top, and Motley came out and they did it. They topped Ratt. Not by much. So after the show, we see, you know, Clyde the Spy, Tommy's drum roadie, on the stage. He motions us to come to the side, and he gives us passes. So I'm with my friend Mike Pont for this. Me and Mike Pont, I don't know why. Mike Pont was the singer in the cover band Hot Shot. I don't know why it was just me and Mike, but it was. So the Beacon Theater is a theater. So then you go into these like doors on the side, which go into stairwells and up the stairs and up the stairs and up the stairs and up the stairs. And on each level were like a couple little rooms, which were the dressing rooms. It wasn't like an arena where there's like a giant locker room, big giant room. These were little rooms on each level of the Beacon Theater going up. So he gives us the passes, and he brings us in the side door that leads us to the stairwell to get all the way up. And we see Motley's security guy, Fred Saunders, who was a tough dude. Fred said, "What happened to your shoulder?" I said, "Nikki bit me last night." He goes, "Fuck that shit." He goes, they tried to bite me once and I cracked some ribs. I'm like, okay. That's good for you. So anyway, Fred leads us up the stairs. So there's so many people in the stairwells, you can't even get up there. So we get up, we get up, we get up, we get up. And Fred opens the door and puts me and Mike in the dressing room, in one of the small dressing rooms with Nikki and Tommy. And they're sitting there in their stage clothes, like sweaty and gross, you know, and they're like, dude, you know, so we're bumping up and they're just sitting there, and Tommy gets a bottle of Jack, untwists the cap and throws it out the window. He's like, we won't be needing that anymore. And I'm like, wow. So chugging Jack, and then at some point we left out of there, and Ratt's road manager Wally pulls us in the Ratt dressing room, and we're in there with Blotzer and Crosby. Needless to say, it was complete insanity. You couldn't move, and we were being pulled in and out of these rooms with the guys just to bump them up. I've got some great pictures I've got a great picture of me and Nikki and Tommy standing in the stairs, near the stairs, and Nikki's biting my hand. And I'm like going, I'm like screaming. That might be already posted, but if not, I'll post that one. And I've got the picture from Lamour Brooklyn with Nikki and Tommy. But that was a crazy night, man. That went on for 2 nights. Ratt opening for Motley. At some point, we're up there in the little dressing room, and we look out the window, and there's where the entrance to like the backstage is, to like the side door, the backstage door. And I look down there, and I see Bruno Ravel and Steve West, and they're like, "Get us in!" And I'm like, I can't even get down the stairs. Forget about getting you in. And it was just too nuts. It was not a situation I could get anybody in. And then we did that 2 nights. And then after one of the nights, I can't remember which one, but there was a nightclub downtown on Varick Street in Manhattan called Heartbreak, which was a very popular club. They played 50s and 60s music, like oldies kind of stuff. A very hot club. So after this show at the Beacon, me and Mike Pont went down there because the Motley guys were going down there. Like, we're going to Heartbreak for, party down there. So they invited us down. We went down, and we were on the list to get in free, and no one else, we couldn't get anybody else on the list, so no one paid to come in. So me and Mike were in there, and Motley was in there. It wasn't super crazy busy. It wasn't like packed. But, there's some scenesters that had gotten the word, and we're hanging out, and it was kind of partying, but chill. Then at some point, Fred says, "Hey, man, we're going downstairs." I was like, okay. I didn't know what was downstairs. And I'd been in this club a bunch of times, but I'd never been downstairs. So we go downstairs, and it's just a small little room. And Fred's like, let's party, like throw it down. So we had an 8-ball, just a good amount. We threw an 8-ball down there. And on top of a pinball machine that was there. Nikki's there, Tommy's there, a couple chicks, Fred, some other people. So I throw down this 8-ball. Fred goes he takes out a Bowie knife, whips open this big knife. Wasn't a Bowie knife, but it was a big snap knife. He whipped it out, and he took the 8-ball and cut it into 4 giant piles. And Nikki and Tommy did the 2 each. And then he's like, "Okay, your turn." I'm like, well, that was it, dude. So somebody else that was there had stuff and threw it down. And we partied until the sun came up. That was that. That was the Motley Crue June 84 shows with Ratt opening the Beacon Theater. The next time we would see Motley Crue would be at the very beginning of the Theater of Pain tour. And that was crazy. That was insane as well. This was a crazy night. I mean, this was a crazy night because it went on for like 3 or 4 days in a row of just insane partying and hanging with Motley and Ratt. Ratt actually came back later on in the summer and played a place called the Pier 84 in Manhattan on the water, which is a big pier. And Ratt played with Twisted Sister. That was a crazy night. 84 and 85 were nutty years, for me anyway, and Bruno and the whole crew for partying. But that's the Motley Crue story there at Beacon Theater. There's a lot more coming. Thanks all of you guys for following me and for giving a shit. My Instagram, 1985 Road Dog. And of course, I'm on YouTube here. And before I forget, thanks for following. Appreciate it, man. Peace out.